Thank you for staying with us. This is Nigeria Decides on Plus TV Africa. Now, the process of salary increment is a never-ending negotiation. The Nigerian Labour Congress and federal government has been having a tussle over the minimum wage for civil servants. It is now placed at 27,000. The issue of welfare of the workers. We're not particularly sure what we're going to be focusing on with this whole brouhaha that's coming up. I'm not alone in the studio, of course. I got my co-anchor.
That's right, we're here.
And we have guests joining us to talk about this very burning issue and how it affects the election. I have at the very end the only lady, or should I say the third lady here, Uche Okoli. She's a public affairs analyst. And of course, we have Chris Onyeka. He's the Acting General Secretary, United Labour Congress. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us on this very critical issue. We know that the minimum wage is the major issue of concern at this time, because we know that even if you're not a worker, you're connected to someone who is possibly a civil servant in Nigeria. But then this has dragged for too long, don't you think? Shouldn't we be talking about other issues by now?
It has dragged for too long. And also, let me correct an impression. The minimum wage is not for the civil servants alone. The civil servants are actually a minority segment, a minor segment in the minimum wage spectrum. And so it has to do with everybody. And so it's dragged for too long. The 18,000 naira minimum wage expired effectively the last day of December 2015. And before this time, we had started writing letters. Personally, I've written up to 60 letters to the federal government, SGF, the Minister of Labour, on minimum wage, on the need for us to start negotiation from 2015. And then nothing was done. 2016, until the unfortunate price hike in petroleum products, which organized labour decided to go on strike, and then there were interventions. One of the products of that intervention was the setting up of the 16-man technical committee that was supposed to now look at the issue entirely. And one of the outcomes of that 16-man technical committee was supposed to be the setting up of the tripartite committee to review the national minimum wage. And then when that committee submitted this report, it took a whole lot of time, a whole lot of pressures from us, letters from us, threats from us, before the committee, the tripartite committee, was inaugurated in 2017 ending, November. And now it took a whole lot of time again. At every stage in this process, we have had to endure a whole lot of pains.
Why is that so? Why is all the protocol?
I think that the people in charge, especially on the government side, have not shown enough maturity and enough consideration to the plight of Nigerian workers. If they had, we wouldn't be here by this time. We would have settled this issue.
Let me bring Uche in now. Okay. So close to the election, this government is almost at the door. What is the implication of this? Is there enough time for us to take this matter to the National Assembly? And with the meeting scheduled for Friday, is there a likelihood of another shutdown to the economy?
Well, I mean, the way things are going, you would have to think that that might be a possibility. This minimum wage, you know, it's a moral issue, in my opinion. You can't expect people to survive even on 30,000 naira, and that's the minimum wage. And I can't believe that we're still discussing that till today. Now, what I really want to understand is why this wasn't settled a long time ago. I can understand why Labour is pushing for it right now, because this is the time they can grab the government by the throat and get them to, you know, agree to something. You know, otherwise the campaign will be derailed, and lots of people might just, you know, have to think twice.
The concern now is the time frame. We have weeks to the next election.
Yeah.
Will Labour succeed with this agitation, or are we still going to end up moving it from this government to the next one? Because there are no guarantees that the ruling APC is going to be holding power next year, and we don't know who might be coming in and what their plans would be.
I think, you know, there is a strong possibility that they might get what they want. I think that's what happened the last time, and then the next government was then there to implement it, so to speak. But I don't know if they really implemented it.
The last time, you see, like I said, it has to take understanding and consideration that you're dealing with the lives of people. If you understand that, in 2011, the minimum wage law was passed in 1 day. 1 day. I was involved in that process. And so it was passed in 1 day at the National Assembly and was given assent by the president. And so it is possible that it could be done if the will is there.
Yes.
And the sensitivity to the plight of the people. You see, Nigerian workers are suffering. We are the most underpaid in Africa. That is not a joke. Nigerian workers are the most underpaid. The minimum wage in Nigeria is the least in Africa. That is the truth. And then we're talking about 30,000 naira, and somebody is saying 27,000. We're talking of a national minimum wage, not a public sector wage or a private sector wage, not a federal government wage, national wage, or a state government wage.
But why do you think Chris Ngige had to bring that in to say that the federal government would take care of 3,000 for the civil servants, and then the state government will have to decide whether they are going to
It shows you that people are playing politics with the lives of Nigerians. The minimum wage is connected to the type of school you go to, your children go to, the quality of food you put on table for your children, the kind of housing that you can access, your quality of life, okay? And if it falls short of that quantity that can take care of those basic needs, it begins to make you subhuman. And if people understand that, then they will understand the passion with which we are prepared to engage this situation.
But then we have several groups coming out to advise Labour to accept, so that at least we can have a bit of peace in the polity and focus on election. Does that make sense?
Without justice, there will be no peace. The one that has not received justice will not sleep well in his own house. And as long as he cannot sleep well in his own house, you that is perpetrating injustice against him will also not sleep. Nigerian workers are cheated. And as long as you cheat them, we will not keep quiet. It will be irresponsible on our part as labor leaders to keep quiet and watch the federal government or whoever ride offshore.
It's not about keeping quiet. She's saying, is there a possibility of Labour saying, okay, for peace to reign so we don't have too much issues, can we accept 27,000?
Because 27 is a close call to 30.
No, we have, you see, let's understand this. The National Council of State does not have any reason. Their intervention in the national minimum wage negotiation process is an aberration. It's illegal. It's unknown. Historically, it has never happened in Nigeria.
I think
international convention, it has never happened.
Shouldn't we see
this is the first time it's happening?
Shouldn't we see it as an intervention to solve the problem?
No. It's unacceptable intervention. There is a legal process. There is a legal process. The legal process is a tripartite committee. The tripartite committee has done its work. Then one leg of that tripod cannot just stand up and say it's 27,000. That is unacceptable.
Chris, let's get to Che's opinion on this.
I also don't see why Labour should stand down. This is their best opportunity to get what they want. You know, if I was Labour, and I feel like I'm Labour, you know, I wouldn't stand down. This wouldn't be the time to stand down. This would be the time to go out there shouting and, you know, let it be heard. Everybody should get involved in this. This is not a fight for just some people. It's a fight for everyone. No, absolutely. I would say, Labour, you just keep going. I mean, it's the government that needs to sort this out.
But then, Uche, I think that Nigeria is in a peculiar time in history.
Right.
We know the kind of challenges we are faced with. The federal government tells us, oh, we don't have funds, we don't have this, we don't have that. Of course, we know that they do a lot of appropriation to themselves, no problem.
Right.
You know.
Okay.
So I'm balancing now because I know you were going to take me up on that. Yes, but the last time the minimum wage was passed, it was done in 1 day. Chris attest to that.
Exactly, yes.
This time, the federal government is tough. Yeah, so do we have a chance now?
Well, I think we just have to go with it till the very end. You know, they have to keep pushing until there is no more room.
So it's not a case of take what's on the table and try to be fine with it.
I mean, 27,000.
What options are there?
It is critical we understand one thing. Nigerian workers and the masses are the sovereign.
Yes.
It's not those.
Okay, but we certainly...
Or in the states,
yes.
the corridors of power.
Yes,
We are
the
sovereign.
citizen, Chris, the citizens are sovereign.
Yes.
All right.
So we have
what
the power.
options are there for resolution?
For
Because
resolution.
we're going to the elections now, and this is like a key issue that needs to be resolved before we go to the polls.
Well,
The polls
I
is
want to
just...
know, why did they offer 27? What's the 3K? What is that all about?
What are the options in
the-
your
the-
opinion?
the
that are
30,000
The
available?
option should be that they should just give it the 30,000. It's
Simple.
not even too much to ask. Just
If you give us 30,000 today, no problem. The next minute it goes. 30,000 naira was not our figure. It was a compromise figure.
That's true.
Organized private sector pleaded with us to accept 30,000. And we did, because we wanted peace, like you said. And yet, it was not. And we cannot continue like this. We have reached the end of our debtors. We can't go any longer. We can't go back any further.
But then, aren't you seeing the possibility that what the federal government is trying to avoid is the possibility that in the event of certain states and private employers having difficulty with even meeting the obligation of paying 27,000 basic to their workers, don't you think that it is also a way to ensure that employers are able to at least attempt to pay?
I will tell you one thing. The private sector, those that are captured, okay, within the minimum wage legislation, don't have any problem paying 30,000 naira at all. That is not where the problem is, because they were already the one that said accept.
So where's the problem?
Where they have problem is the federal government and the state government.
But the federal government says they will pay 30.
No. The federal government have not done. We have told the federal government, if you insist it's not you, why not do your own bit? Your own bit is to transmit the 30,000 to the National Assembly.
Okay.
In 2011, after the legislation, after the law was passed, we went from state to state enforcing, okay, the implementation of 18,000. Oh, go ahead, do your own job. And the president has refused to do his job. We are waiting. I think the legislative hour has gone. I hope he has transmitted that. If not, we're already discussing.
But who is putting a tab on
how
this?
we take action.
Who is putting a tab on this? How are you?
The timeline.
Yes.
They on their own asked to be given till 23rd.
Okay.
Which is today. So in few hours,
News
it has
will
already
break.
expired.
News will break. We're waiting for an update.
Is National Assembly? We have our people at National Assembly. They will inform us if
Let-
that has been done.
Okay, let me come to you, Uche.
Okay.
Would you support a shutdown of the economy? Because that's the threat on the table by the organized labor now. They're saying if nothing happens, and after their meeting on Friday, they might, whatever happens, the government should not blame them. In this struggle, would you support a shutdown of the economy, knowing that the ripple effect might not favor the Nigerian workers we're trying to protect? I mean,
Well, it might not favor us in the short term, but I think in the long term it will. I really think we need to all be united in this fight. I don't think anyone should expect something good to happen, you know, without sacrificing something. So this is a matter of life and death in many situations. We can't just sit here. Maybe some of us are really comfortable in our lives and, you know, just sit back and say, well, you know, I don't want to shut down the economy. No, shut it down if you have to. I'm sorry, but that's just the way I am, you know, just shut it down if you have to. But let's do it to get a result. And they've come this far. I think you've got to go the whole way.
you're nodding.
Chris, yeah, I'm sure that's something.
Well, you see, when you're pushed to the wall, that's the only thing that is left for you. And let me also make it clear. The meeting of Wednesday, United Labour Congress is not involved in that meeting. We're not going to be involved. We have done talking with the government. United Labour Congress of Nigeria, ULC, will not be a party to a waste of time. The issues are very, very clear. Transmit. Have they transmitted 30,000 today? If not, we would, by tomorrow, continue engaging the civil society organizations and other labor centers to ensure that we do the needful. We have not said we are going on strike. We have not said what we are going to do, but we're not going to say it. Nigerians will wake up. The various sectors will wake up and see what we have done. Because we have already issued a communique when we had an organized labor meeting in Lagos here. All the leaders of the presidents of the three labor centers were there. I was the secretary of that meeting. And we issued a communique. And we said, you transmit. If you don't transmit, this is what we will do. And we will do it.
Okay.
Let me ask this
It's very
question.
clear.
Are you in the know of this conspiracy theory that all of these moves, the delay, the back and forth, is a ploy to pass the bulk, so to speak, by one government to another, so they don't have to take up the responsibility of, burdening the country, so to speak, with huge debt with this minimum wage?
That would be a funny conspiracy. If that were the case, then it would mean that the present government is not thinking about coming back into power. So that would mean that there will be no continuation, which is strange, if that's what they're campaigning for.
Strange.
So if I were them, I wouldn't. That theory just wouldn't work for me. I think what they need to do is agree to this. I mean, just transmit it. That's all you need to do, and then let the enforcement come from you guys.
Will it affect their chances in this election if, for instance, for some untoward reason they are unable to transmit it to the National Assembly?
We will mobilize Nigerian workers and masses to vote against any government, any man, any woman, any government anywhere that decides to go against us in this minimum wage. If we don't get it, we are going to mobilize effectively, and we are not playing politics with this. We are not being diplomatic about it. You don't like Nigerian workers, it is clear. You don't want us to leave, it is clear. You want us to continue suffering, it's clear. You want Nigerian workers to continue being deprived, it's clear. You are emasculating us, it's clear, and we have to. It will be responsible for us to fold our hands and watch this continue.
Don't you think that sounding this stuff? Don't you think that sounding this stuff would come off to the government as trying to force its hand?
To do what?
To pay minimum wage at this point.
We have started. I remember I tried to be historical. I said from 2015.
To agree to what it can do.
We have been pleading. This government. This government has more naira than the previous government, and that is the truth. You look at the budget alone will explain. The salaries of Nigerian workers are not paid in foreign exchange; they are paid in naira.
Okay.
And so this government has more naira than any other government in history.
Chris, let me ask you this. I can feel that you have been fighting for this. You've been part of struggles in the past. Now, what kind of future, what's the outlook? Because I think that this is something that labor leaders wouldn't want to carry forward. The next time it's time to review the minimum wage, do you want to fight again? What is labor, organized labor, essentially doing to ensure that this fight stop and that the right things are done at the right time?
You can answer that in about 30 seconds because we need to go on a break.
Various governments to make the minimum wage adjustment automatic. In other societies where things are done normally, the minimum wage is attached to the inflation rate, a threshold. Once it gets to a threshold, the minimum wage is automatically adjusted. We have pleaded with them several times, this is what we should do, but they have refused. And as long as they have refused, we will not fold their hands, we'll keep on engaging them.
Okay, yes, we're still talking about the tussle for the new minimum wage. Remember, you can join the conversation by sharing your thoughts with us on any of our social media platforms. Nigeria Decides returns after this break.